Good afternoon and welcome to the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Sciences commencement ceremony, taking place here at the Institute of Marine and Environmental Technology, IMET. So IMET is a consortium of three universities, the University of Maryland, Baltimore, the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science. My name is Russell Hill, and I serve as IMET's Executive Director and as a faculty member at UMSES. And I have the great honor of introducing Dr. Bill Dennison, our UMSES Interim President. So let me tell you a little bit about Bill. Interim President Dennison is an internationally renowned expert in coastal ecosystem ecology and restoration, and in engagement with citizens in solution-based sciences, one of UMSE's great strengths. Dr. Dennison serves on the Governor's Bays and Watersheds Council. He's a member of the Maryland Commission on Climate Change, and he chairs its Science and Technical Working Group. I'd also like to spend a moment to celebrate Interim President Dennison's legacy at UMSES. Since serving as our Vice President for Science Applications in 2003, all the way through to the present. So through Bill's leadership, UMSES has led the Integration and Application Network, also known as IAN, that's charged to inspire, manage, and produce timely synthesis and assessments on key environmental issues, with a special emphasis on the Chesapeake Bay and its waters. And Bill has helped us expand our UMSE's role in graduate education, working recently with close partners at Frostburg State University. We've started a Master's in Environmental Management program. We've been offering post-baccalaureate certificates in several environmental fields, and embarking on a badging programs to recognize qualifications for environmental professionals. So Bill is a thought leader and a teacher of the Environment and Society Foundation course in our graduate program, the MEES program, and he has helped establish UMSES as the leading academic institution in analyzing, visualizing, and predicting the future by utilizing big data. And this is through the establishment of the UMSES Chesapeake Global Collaborative. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Dennison.
Thanks very much, Russell. A beautiful venue, a beautiful day. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, graduates, families, students, and colleagues. Welcome to the 2024 University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science commencement ceremony. I'm going to introduce our platform party first. In the beautiful green, we have Dr. Michelle Masucci. She's the University System of Maryland Vice Chancellor for Research and Economic Development. She's wearing her Clark University regalia very nicely. Next to her is Dr. Larry Sanford, who's our Vice President for Education. He'll be announcing you'll be hearing a lot from him later. We have our Director of the Marine Estuary Environmental Sciences graduate program from College Park, Dr. Tim Canty. And then finally, our amazing commencement speaker, the Undersecretary for Commerce for Oceans and Atmospherics and the NOAA Administrator, Dr. Rick Spinrad. I also want to welcome, this is kind of a ghost of past, present, and future presidents. Our past president for 27 years, Dr. Don Bosch. And our incoming president in 30 days is Dr. Fernando Moraes Wilhelm. Welcome, Don and Fernando. Well, congratulations to you graduates. you've made it to this great event, and it's a remarkable achievement. I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today. You're going to hear some greetings from our UMSES folks. We're going to have special recognition of several members of our community through some awards that we give to our UMSES faculty, staff, and students. These outstanding students, staff, and faculty have earned accolades from their peers and are emblematic of what we are as institutions. So we want to share that with everyone here today. We have our commencement speaker, the NOAA administrator. I introduced Dr. Rick Spinrad, and then we're going to recognize individually each of the class graduates, talk about their accomplishments, and their advisors will be saying a few words about them as well. And I'm going to start off by introducing Michelle Masucci. She's representing the Chancellor today. She's been a really important friend and colleague of UMSES since her appointment as Vice Chancellor. She was tasked by the Board of Regents to lead an institutional assessment, a summation of UMSES in preparation for that presidential search, which resulted in the selection of Fernando Moraes. She got her master's and PhD from Clark University. That's why she's wearing the green. She also got a Bachelor of Science in Geography from another University System of Maryland institution, Salisbury University. So she's just coming home when she comes back here after a pretty long career at Temple University, but she's also been at Auburn and West Georgia University. So, Michelle.
Good afternoon. Thank you for that very warm introduction, and thank you to this community for welcoming me and making me feel a part of your world. I really appreciate it since coming to the system almost 2 years ago. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to extend best wishes and congratulations on behalf of the University System of Maryland. I want to express my deep appreciation to Interim President and longtime Vice President Bill Dennison. You know he's been working tirelessly to make sure that the university moves forward and maintains its momentum as one of the system's great environmental research institutions. On behalf of the Chancellor, the Board, and incoming President Fernando Moraes-Wilhelm, who is also here today, as you know, I want to know how grateful we are for your service, Bill. I'm honored as well to be here with our commencement speaker, Dr. Rich Spinrad, Under Secretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmospheric, and the Atmosphere, and the 11th NOAA Director. We're thrilled to have your insights and be able to share some words of wisdom with our graduates. Most importantly, I'm honored to be here as we celebrate the newest members of the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science growing family of graduates. Now you get to become a part of an alumni network, a vast other infrastructure for you to connect with. UMSES holds a special place among USM institutions. Of course, it's a leading research university across the system with a focus on managing the world's environmental resources. UMSES provides important thought leadership on sustainability across the system. Obviously, it's a hub of interdisciplinary education and learning. It produces graduates who will be critical in solving the environmental challenges locally and globally. Stretching across Maryland from the Appalachians to the Eastern Shore, where I am from, yes, I am a proud Salisbury Seagull, UMES engages with communities throughout the state, including outreach and service programs, and I think that's just such an important component of what the university does well, and I know so many of you have been involved in that as a part of your educations. And finally, UMSES holds many important partnership and relationships with federal and state agencies, including but not limited to EPA, NOAA, the Maryland Department of the Environment, Maryland's Department of Natural Resources, and many of UMSES graduates move on to these institutions and help keep those ties together. I think that's a really wonderful thing for the institution to see the application of the learning that you have in policy making and in shaping the quality of environments here locally and beyond. In so many ways, UMSES represents what's best about public higher education, and I will say this, You know, I've dedicated my entire career to public higher education. I really believe that it's the way that we as a society move forward to solving our most intractable problems. You bring the people with you, and I think public education does that more so than any other type of experience you can have. Today, you become a part of an enduring part of that proud and impressive legacy, and I think that bears with it some responsibility as well. Again, I offer each of you a well-deserved congratulations, and one thing I do know about graduation speeches, the best thing to do is be short, so I will turn it over back to Bill. Congratulations.
So each year, our University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science recognizes faculty, students, and staff for their accomplishments and excellence. And to do research, it takes a community. The faculty can't do this alone. So we want to celebrate the entire entity that we represent in conducting the cutting-edge research that occurs at our institution. So today we're going to recognize a few who have really gone above and beyond to do that extra special enhancement of our research education enterprise. So our first recipient is going to be, is not here today. She's the recipient of the UMC Staff Excellence Award, Cammie Martin, based out in Frostburg, Maryland, and she was given this excellence award for her 20-year dedication and the success of Maryland's Appalachian Laboratory. Cammie does purchasing, procurement, inventory control, managing vehicles, but what I kept hearing from the staff, from the faculty and staff at Appalachian Lab, she really went above and beyond. Was it Christmas Day? There was a flood and a pipe burst, and there she was, working to do that. Some students had a flat tire on the highway. There she was, pulling over to help them out. She really went above and beyond. We were able to have a nice breakfast celebration for Cammie earlier this year, or late last year, and so we're really excited that she received this award. Now, the next award is for the Outstanding Faculty Mentor Award, and this was not selected by the administration, it was selected by the students. And so I'm going to invite the Graduate Student Council Chair, Majid. And Majid, I asked 6 people about how to pronounce your last name, and nobody knows you by your last name. Everybody, there's only one Majid, so I'm going to give it a shot. Al-Refe? Al-Refe? Okay, so Majid, could you do the honors?
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's start by congratulating our dear students, their family, and their mentors. And we wish you all the very best in your future journeys. On behalf of the Graduate Student Council, I have the honor and privilege to congratulate the recipient of this year's Outstanding Faculty Mentor Award, Dr. Yantao Li. Dr. Li is an associate professor at the Institute of Marine Environmental Technology here at IMET. His research focuses on algal biology and biotechnology. His work not only advances our understanding of these fields, but also contributes the development of high-value products that benefit society. Here are a few quotes from students about Dr. Li's mentorship, highlighting the profound impact he has had on the UMC student community. A student shared, Dr. Li has high expectations for his students, but he provides support and encouragement that helps us reach our highest potential. This overall has helped me expand my skill set and become a more confident scientist. Another student noted, Dr. Li has been an exceptional advisor throughout my graduate studies. He is approachable and supportive, consistently prioritizing the growth and development of his students. He encourages independent and critical thinking while providing mentorship every step of the way. Another last student highlighted, it was under Dr. Li's guidance and mentorship that I was first introduced to research. Dr. Lee's ability to explain complex concepts and foster a collaborative and supportive working environment has been invaluable. These testimonials illustrate Dr. Lee's dedication, which extend beyond traditional mentoring. Today, as we celebrate his accomplishments, we are reminded of the profound impact that dedicated faculty mentors have on their students' professional and personal lives. Thank you, Dr. Lee, for your exceptional dedication and for setting a high standard of mentorship. Congratulations.
This is going to be one of my favorite things to do today, because I get to announce the award for the Outstanding Research Support, an award that honors the work and commitment that often goes behind the scenes without a lot of fanfare. Our faculty research assistants are critical to our research enterprise and contribute to the graduate experience as well. This recognition is for individual who goes above the norms and include unique leadership, mentorship, and service roles. Alex Fries, would you join us up here? Alex has got a couple of trailing children here. Alex just spent 3 weeks in Zambia, Africa, without her kids, and so I think there's a little bit of mommy needed for that. So Alex has made significant contributions to leadership. She's been at the Integration and Application Network, where she's a principal investigator and project manager in a bunch of large projects. She supervises employees, she just makes it all happen. She's key to Integration Application Network. She just finished teaching a science communication course as well. She's dedicated to teaching, mentoring, and empowering other science communicators. Excuse me. And she's supervised and mentored numerous junior staff and interns, ensuring her colleagues hone the skills necessary to make their data relevant. She also aims to bolster the work environment by representing the faculty research assistants in a shared governance activity and helped establish a formal FRA council. So, congratulations, Alex. I'll introduce our Vice President for Education, Larry Sanford.
Thank you, Dr. Dennison. It's my pleasure today to announce the award for the Graduate Student Service Award. You know, there's so much more to UMCES than academia. There's so much more to UMCES than just research. Service is the third leg of UMCES' mission. And this particular award was established several years ago to recognize a graduate student at UMCES who goes above and beyond normal expectation to contribute to the system, to the university, to their lab unit, to outreach, to community, to government agencies, whatever, right? Just to reach out beyond what would be normally expected of a graduate student. And it's my great pleasure this year to announce that the award goes to Chelsea Fowler from the Horn Point Laboratory. Chelsea has been working in the laboratory of Lewis Plow at Horn Point Laboratory, and she's been working on the efficacy of new environmental DNA monitoring techniques for important fish populations. But she's also been working tirelessly to create a welcoming student environment, for taking numerous opportunities to work with new folks with great enthusiasm. She served as the MEAS graduate student representative. She served as a volunteer liaison for the Summer Research Experiences for Undergraduates program. She's led the Horn Point chapter of the Society for Women in Marine Science. She's dedicated to community engagement and has helped Horn Point expand its presence and impact in the local community. She's just done so many different things and contributed so much to the culture at Horn Point and to our sense of connection to our community. Congratulations, Chelsea.
Okay, for our final award, this is the President's Award for Excellence in the Application of Science. This was started 25 years ago by President Don Bosch at the time. It honors exemplary applications of science that have had a positive impact on environmental protection and management by UMSI's faculty members. Today is the Yantao Lee show, so Yantao Lee, could you come back up here? Get your steps in today. Yantao works right here in this building at IMET. He's expert in bioalgal biology and biotechnology. He's recognized for his research that's led to the application of growing algae to create biofuels and bioproducts. These science applications of microalgae are crucial as we attempt to ameliorate the global impacts of rising carbon dioxide levels, because these microbes can absorb carbon dioxide, helping reduce the impacts of climate change. And this mass culture can also create biofuels and bioproducts. He's also investigating how to create commercially valuable bioproducts from microalgae, and he partners with U.S. Department of Energy, an array of academic partners. He has an active lab. You've already heard about his ability as a mentor. He's produced a patented method of coming up with a pigment from microalgae and the formation of a startup company. Yantao, I solicited letters from some of your colleagues, and one of the letters I thought I'd read a little bit from Stephen Miller from UMBC. He says, and I think it fits because of the award he already received today. In addition to being a terrific researcher, Yantao is also a terrific person. He is an excellent mentor who provides kind and patient guidance to his trainees and cares deeply for their well-being and preparation for future success. He's a wonderfully generous colleague who is all about doing great science and lifting others up without ever drawing attention to himself. Well, that ends today. We're drawing attention to Yantao. So, in addition to that nice plaque, go ahead, give them the plaque there. One of the things Don Bosch did is endowed a fund to create some original art to celebrate each unique recipient of this award. And this was a challenge because Yantao works on microalgae. Like people work on fish, it's easy. You can get a fish culture. Yeah. But what we did is we commissioned this work of art these are Chlamydomonas, the little unicellular green algae that with the eye spot and the nucleus are really well represented here. And it turns out, I just found out this morning, this was the artist who did this, Sarah Hood, is a MEAS graduate, married to Ed Hood, one of our esteemed faculty. So it's all in the family here, Yantao. So here you go with your Chlamydomonas. Congratulations. We're honored by the regents of the University System of Maryland for a couple of really important awards. One of them was to a graduate student who's today, Jens Wira, who today is in Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution doing research, so he can't be here today. But we did have a very nice event that the Chancellor put on a couple weeks ago for the USM Board of Regents Student Excellence Award for the Innovation and Creative Activity category. Now, Russell's always bragging here that out of the 37,000 graduate students in the university system, the 2 of the 4 in this category were awarded from IMET here. So Jens and is one of those 2. So that's a fantastic thing that he's doing. I had him in one of my classes. He's a remarkable creative guy that does so much for the lab. But we also had a faculty award this year, again, recognized out of the entire university system of Maryland. We've got Dr. Jin Chung here. Jin, could you stand up, please? Jin Jin's a rock star. She has been working on sustainable agriculture. She's got this fantastic sustainable agricultural matrix, the SAM-IM, and she's looked at the intersection of socioeconomic and biogeochemical processes that affect the global nitrogen cycle and sustainability of agriculture. And she's currently leading a multi-million-dollar, multi-year, multi-institution project called the Global Nitrogen Innovation Center for Clean Energy, NICE was their great acronym. And they're going to have their first kickoff in a couple weeks in this building to address the opportunities and challenges of using green ammonia as a shipping fuel. So thank you, Jin. And thank you to all the awardees today. Now I have the honor of introducing our commencement speaker, Dr. Rick Spinrad. So as this Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and the NOAA Administrator, Dr. Spinrad's responsible for the strategic direction and oversight of the agency, including developing NOAA's portfolio of products and services to address the climate crisis, enhancing environmental sustainability, fostering economic development, and creating a more just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive workforce. Previously, Rick was on served as NOAA's chief scientist under President Barack Obama. He led NOAA's Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research for 7 or 8 years. He co-led. He's kind of a failure. He's left NOAA twice and then failed at leaving, and they keep bringing him back. Of course, each time at a higher level. He co-led the nation's first set of ocean research priorities and revamped NOAA's research enterprise. And he also has an academic background. He's not a political appointee as often in government. He served as Vice President for Research at Oregon State. He held leadership positions of the U.S. Office of Naval Research, Oceanographer of the Navy, faculty appointments not just at Oregon State, but also the Naval Academy and George Mason. He's been the executive director of the Consortium for Oceanic Research and Education, president of CTEC, and worked as a research scientist at Bigelow as well as Oregon State. And even developed a National Ocean Sciences Bowl for high school students. So this guy is just, I saw him give a talk at the Ocean Sciences meeting in New Orleans a few months ago. And of course, that was about a 45-minute plenary speech. I asked him to shorten it just a little bit. So anyway, we're really excited to have the NOAA. You guys realize we got a rock star for you, Rick Spinrad.
What a great UMSES day, huh? Let's try again, yeah. It's also a beautiful NOAA day. So I think you know NOAA also includes the National Weather Service. And for that I say you're welcome. Of course, when it's not like this, we don't take any credit for it. And I also point out when I make a comment like that actually at NOAA, we are only in charge of marketing, not production. For production, you have to go to a higher authority. So thank you, Dr. Dennison, for that very kind introduction. I appreciate it. And the leadership here, Dr. Hill, Dr. Masucci, distinguished guests, Don, Fernando, I am so touched by being here in your presence. I think symbolically you represent the stellar legacy over decades and the exciting future that we have here at UMCES. I'll add on a personal note that when I got the invitation, the very kind invitation to come speak, it was very special to me because not only have I had the pleasure of working with many faculty at UMCES over the years, but we also hire a lot of the graduate students. So pay attention to what I'm about to say here. It may be relevant and important. And to the graduates, let me just say, it is such an honor to be here with you, with your families, friends, with faculty, staff, and colleagues. This is such a special occasion. I've got to say also from a personal standpoint, the last time I wore a cap and gown in Baltimore was 49 years ago. I graduated from Johns Hopkins just up the road, so it's a special treat for me to come back a little bit older, a little bit heavier, a little less hair, and celebrate this wonderful academic tradition. I'll also point out, some of you may be familiar, I'm looking at the graduates right now, that recently a fellow named Robert Hale Jr., who's the CEO of a tech firm called Granite Telecommunications, was the speaker up at UMass Dartmouth. And he announced during his commencement speech that he was giving each of the graduates $1,000. No, don't look under your chair right now. It's not there. I'm here to tell you I'm going to give you something I think is even more valuable, a little bit of advice. So you be the judge of that by the time I'm done here. First, let me just give you my sense of why I think your newly minted degrees are so important. It boils down to the fact that the world is fundamentally different now. I looked at the work that you had done for your degrees, and it is going to be so relevant to where this world is going in the future. We're seeing unprecedented events, and especially unprecedented events that are affecting particularly vulnerable communities. Think about this. Last year, we saw 28 different disasters of more than $1 billion damage each. Natural disasters, hurricanes, floods, fires. To put that in perspective, about 30 or 40 years ago, there were only 3 per year. So the demand for understanding why are we seeing these extraordinary events is only growing. We've already seen 7 of them this year, and we're just only 5 months into the calendar year. Communities around the country are facing extraordinary challenges, whether it's sea level rise or having to actually move their community. I've been up in coastal Alaska, where communities are having to uproot and move. Imagine that. Think of where your home is, where your community is. Suddenly you realize, we can't live here anymore. We have to move. Inland, higher level. Impacts are felt across the communities, and we're all paying for it. Even if you yourself are not feeling droughts and floods, you may be paying homeowners insurance, you're paying for the cost of goods. That's all being affected by these changes. We've seen one of the most active tornado seasons this year. In the 3 weeks from the end of April to the middle of May, we saw over 4,000 tornado watches and warnings. That's the bad news. The good news is there were only 7 fatalities. Now that's 7 too many, and for those families, that's horrific. But think about that. Hundreds and hundreds of tornadoes, and we've managed to get so much better at forecasting these activities. Think about food security in the future. So much of what you've done has been about the role of the ocean in food security, whether it's dealing with primary productivity, impacts on the ecosystem, the ability to predict and ecologically forecast what's happening is critical to food security around the world. Threats to food security from climate change and damaging seafood infrastructure and port infrastructure are going to demand scientifically valid, technologically robust solutions. A lot of times I give talks and I follow speakers who are, I would say, preaching gloom and doom with respect to the impacts of climate change. I like to say I am a climate optimist because I'm a climate realist. I've seen the power of the science that you all have been working on and that the faculty are working on. I've seen the ability to take that knowledge and convert it to smart decisions, actually becoming what we at NOAA are calling a climate-ready nation. I've seen the power of doing things like what we did last year when we created the very first Ocean Climate Action Plan. It says if we do these things, we can actually be smart about sea level rise. We can tell the people in Annapolis or San Diego or Nome, Alaska, what they can do to respond to the kind of impacts they're seeing. Climate mitigation, climate adaptation activities, identifying gaps in climate and ocean science and management capabilities, because science is only as good as our ability to interpret it and apply it, build regulations, build policies. These are all the things that are going to be critical in the future. Let's talk about some other areas that are directly impacted by the kind of knowledge that you have developed and obtained. I like to talk about the two 30 by 30s. I am a political appointee, and part of the Biden-Harris administration has been to advocate for the 30 by 30s. What am I talking about? Well, one of the 30 by 30s is that we will have 30 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. How are we going to do that? Think about that. First of all, if you're going to put a wind farm offshore, you better be sure none of that activity adversely affects the ecosystem. Everything from understanding the biogeography of critical species to how the acoustics of putting in a wind farm may affect whales. So we play a critical role in building out that infrastructure of offshore wind. The other 30 by 30 I like to talk about is that we have made a decision, we being the global community, it's not just the US, that we will preserve and conserve 30% of our lands and waters by 2030. Which 30%? If I gave you a blank sheet of paper right now, and again, I'm looking at all the graduates, where would you say we need to conserve parts of our coastal environment, and why? And you know what? You are the ones who are going to advise on that. Yes, we're going to ask communities. We're going to ask tribal communities. We're going to ask local communities, what do they think? But at the end of the day, it's got to be scientifically robust. It's got to be based on the best science. So where are the threatened ecosystems? Where are the opportunities for actually protecting and conserving parts of the ocean in order to assure that we balance the carbon budget, in order to ensure that we can appropriately recruit populations of marine organisms and build up the ecosystem? That's science directly tied to policy making. So at NOAA, for example, we're in the midst of expanding our National Marine Sanctuary portfolio. I've been at NOAA on and off almost 20 years. We are now in the process of designating 6 national marine sanctuaries. We have 15. The sanctuaries program's been around for 50 years. What does that tell you? We are really putting our pedal to the metal in designating protected areas. We need your help. We need smart thinking about how to develop the next generation of marine protected areas. The other thing I'm excited about is this whole concept of doing this equitably, making sure that every single community, including those that have been traditionally unserved or underserved, get a fair shake. And so by providing that 40% of federal investments benefit underserved and disadvantaged communities, we're re-leveling the playing field, if you will. How do we do that? Where do we do that? That's going to take the best social scientists, the best policy developers, the best biologists, the best chemists, the best physicists. What's on the horizon? Why do I get excited about this? So, as a card-carrying oceanographer, allow me to geek out just a little bit. Because when I look at this, and oh, by the way, I came out of retirement to take this job. I actually, when I left NOAA in 2016, at the end of the Obama administration, I turned my car west. My wife and I ripped the rear view mirrors off the car and said, we're never coming back to DC. And we moved out to Oregon, built our dream home. And then I saw the opportunity for doing some really cool stuff, not unlike what I talked about. But the geeky part is, what are we going to do about the use of artificial intelligence? We have 60 petabytes of stored data in NOAA. There are gems of understanding in those 60 petabytes of data that only artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning is going to help tease out. But wait, there's more. It's not just the data-specific aspects of AI. What about generative AI? So here's something to think about. We have the National Marine Fisheries Service. Many of you are probably familiar with what we do in NIMS. We write a lot of regulations, fishing regulations. We spend a lot of time reviewing the literature. Then we'll put out a draft rule. Then we'll get 100,000 public comments. Then we'll spend a lot of time reviewing 100,000 comments. Maybe we could use generative AI instead. What do you think? Love to hear your thoughts on things like that. We're using robotics. Right now, I'm guessing for those of you who had, let's say, data-intensive areas of study, one of the hardest things was to get enough quality-controlled, reliable, authoritative data. And part of that is, it's really hard to collect environmental data. It's expensive. You got to go out in the field. Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate. What if we could, for example, in Chesapeake Bay, have a resident system of observational platforms located in the bay that were smart, could sample adaptively, and let's say we had 1,000 of them. So as soon as we saw an event starting to happen, whether it's a storm blowing up or something like the Francis Scott Key collision, we could immediately deploy and collect the data we need to know what the impacts are. That's where autonomous uncrewed systems are going to come in. We're doing that already at NOAA. We do that for measuring hurricanes. We launch drones out of our aircraft. We do it for mapping and charting. I was just on one of our ships, the Thomas Jefferson, a couple of weeks ago, where we launched, we call it DRIX. It's an uncrewed system that maps and charts the ocean for 30 or 40 hours at a time. We also do really sexy things like measure the respiration from whales by using a drone that flies directly over the whale, collects the breath from the whale so we can analyze the breath. It has a very technical name. We call that the snot bot. Incredible things, number of things we can do with uncrewed systems. eDNA. I have about 2 hours now, is that right? We can talk about eDNA? Let's just say that when I was in the seats you're sitting in right now, if somebody told me that you'd have the ability to measure in situ not just how many, but what species had been in that water mass over the last day or so, I would have thought that was science fiction. It's real now. It's amazing. Marine carbon dioxide removal. The idea that the marine systems might actually help us remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. These are things, these technologies are things that are going to change the world. And you are there right now to take advantage of them, to apply them, to change them. You've been able to build a set of tools. The knowledge you've gleaned during your graduate career is just one tool. And what I'd like to do in closing is talk about how do you use that tool. So you could go to a hardware store and buy the best tool, but if you don't understand how to use it, you're not taking full advantage. So let me give you some thoughts, dare I say advice, on how to use it. And I call it the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are passion, people, and pivot. Let me tell you what I mean. I encourage you to put yourselves under a microscope and know your passion. And I will share with you my own experience, because a lot of people think, yeah, well, you do that when you're in your 20s or 30s and you're set for life. My first passion I discovered when I was in 8th grade. I was a student in the public schools in New York City, and I discovered I loved the ocean. And I decided I was going to be an oceanographer, and I attribute that to the teacher I had in 8th grade, who gave me this passion. It never left me. It wasn't until I was well into my 60s that I realized my other passion. And my other passion is service. I realized the parts of my career that to me were most fulfilling is when I felt like I wasn't in this to make a whole lot of money. I wasn't in this for fortune and fame. I was in this because I felt like I was doing something to move the needle. So my son and his next generation and the people that are standing here in my job in 50 years could say, I'm glad they did that back in 2024. That service concept is a passion. Know your passion. Always be asking yourself, what is that passion? If you know the passion, It's going to be easy to follow your trajectory. The second thing is people. It sounds trite. I tell a lot of our fellows at NOAA, network. When you're in NOAA for a year, network, find people. Every single job that I've ever had since graduate school, I got because I knew someone. The program manager I had from the Office of Naval Research when I was a new, young PhD, who after a couple years called me up one day and said, "You really know your stuff. Would you like to come be a program manager at the Office of Naval Research?" The chief of staff at NOAA, whom I'd gotten to know pretty well for years, who slipped me a note 23 years ago saying, "Would you like to be the head of the National Ocean Service?" Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a patronage system. You actually have to have some skills too, but you've got that. You have to have the education, the experience, but get to know your community, get to know people, really engage. You'd be surprised where that's going to pay off. And the third area, pivot. This one's a little harder, and the other way to think about this one is know your risk tolerance. Know what it is you're willing to try that's different. I was in the middle of a postdoc when my colleagues back at Oregon State University, where I did my PhD, called me and said, we want to start a startup company, and we'd love for you to come be the president. And I was thinking, wait a minute, I'm on a trajectory here, postdoc, assistant, associate, full prof. I decided to pivot. I had a job at the Office of Naval Research where I was part of the Senior Executive Service, which is the highest level of the career civil service. And I met an amazing guy, Admiral Jim Watkins, who asked me if I'd like to quit the federal government, leave everything that has to offer, and oh, by the way, my son was getting ready to go to college, and come work for him in what was effectively a startup non-governmental organization. Don was part of that whole discussion back then. It was a pretty risky move, but I thought, I'm ready to pivot. Did all the analysis, and I said, this makes sense. For me, it meant knowing what my threshold was for taking risk. That's what I call pivot. So know your passion, and always be asking, is there another passion that you might really have inside of you? Engage with people, and be prepared to pivot. If you do those things, I guarantee you will have not just a successful career, but an extraordinarily rewarding career. I wish you all the best. My deepest congratulations. Have a great, great career. Congratulations.
So I think we're all fortunate that Rick failed at retirement and was able to come back to NOAA and provide that inspiration. I think that's worth $1,000, don't you guys? So we have a little something we'd like to give you. The same artist who we commissioned for Yan Tao's award, again, a graduate of the MEAS program, has produced this very nice platter for us. Now we're getting close to the real thing here. I'm going to introduce Tim Canty. He's the director of the System-Wide Marine Estuarine Environmental Sciences, MEAS, graduate program. He's based at University of Maryland College Park. He's an associate professor researching air quality, science, policy, stratospheric ozone, and climate change. Tim.
Unfortunately for me, I'm supposed to figure out how to follow up on that tremendous commencement address. Unfortunately for you, I wasn't given a time limit. Graduates, congratulations. One of the challenges of the MEAS program is I hardly get to see any of you really at our colloquium, at graduation. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. We have a tremendous program that brings a lot of opportunity for our students. This is one of the high points of my career, is getting to see students leave. I mean, that's the whole point of being a graduate student, is to graduate. Student is a temporary designation. You've learned a lot. You've overcome a lot to get to this point. You've succeeded. I want to wish you success, but you've already succeeded due to the fact that you're here. You're in a position now that you will always have more to learn, hopefully. if we've run out of things to learn, it means there's nothing more to learn and we all have to find other jobs. And, that would be sad because what am I going to do? I'm just a physicist. I have nothing else useful to add to society. But I think take great joy in the fact that there are still mysteries to uncover. There's still a lot more to learn. But learning comes in many forms. And in listening to Dr. Spinrad's comments and, for the past couple of weeks thinking what I was thinking of what I'm going to speak about, and there's a general theme here, but bear with me. And so the TIA CREF coordinator for College Park reminds me that I'm getting further away from when I got my PhD and closer to the time when I may hope to retire someday, and I don't know what that means, and so I look to others who have done this and to try to figure out what retirement looks like. And I know this sounds strange, you're just starting your career and I'm talking about retirement, but it's never too soon to plan. And so I looked to others, and recently I had a colleague who was the former director of the National Weather Service, Louis Uccellini, called me up and rather gruffly said, "Tim, I need to speak with you." And he sounded angry about something, and as a climate scientist, atmospheric science, there are certain federal agencies you don't want to annoy, and one is NOAA and the Weather Service, and I thought, am I in trouble? What did I do? And he said, I'm going to be retiring soon. And I would like to join the Department of Atmospheric and Oceanic Science because I've been impressed with a lot of your undergraduates and I'd like to work with them. And I thought, what? Great. Awesome. Let's figure out a way to make this happen. And he came to campus and I got to know him much better. And we're walking around campus one time and he's picking up bits of garbage. I'm looking at him like, what are you doing? And he looked at me because I must have been looking at him funny. And he said, look, I just feel if I see garbage, it's my responsibility to pick it up. And I thought, wow, it's a really interesting approach. And imagine if we all felt that and all took that responsibility. Like in this building, if there's bits of garbage, maybe there's staff to clean it up or we pick it up. But as soon as we go outside, we see bits of garbage and we just, somebody else put that there. It's not mine. I'm not going to pick it up. But imagine if it was your home and someone dumped a bunch of garbage on your couch and left. You'd be upset, but you'd probably clean it up. Why does this apply only to where we live inside, but not where we live outside? And so I find myself now picking up a lot more garbage than I used to. But it also reminds me that none of us is ever so important that we can't pick up the garbage. If we ever think that, talk to someone who picks up garbage for a living and whose taxes pay our stipends and their salaries and pays for their students, their children to go to school. It's the little things like that really can make a big difference. And so I learned, here's someone who's in charge at one point of $1 billion federal agency picking up other people's garbage. And I thought, to me that's important. And I said, I'm picking up a lot more garbage than I ever thought I would. But we also were talking about careers and future, and here's a guy who, again, was in charge of a major agency, now working with undergraduates on their senior research programs. One of our graduates here went through this with me several years ago. And he's mentoring junior faculty and helping them with writing proposals, and he's writing the 3rd edition of his book. I'm like, this is what retirement looks like? He's almost as busy now as when he was working for NOAA. And so while I, of course, wish you all the best of success, I also sincerely hope that as you move forward with your careers, and it's not just for the graduates, for everybody here, that you develop passion and interests and expertise in a lot of things. You are scientists. That doesn't mean you're locked into one thing. I'm a physicist who is going to be an experimentalist, who's a theoretician who runs computer models, who's the director of a marine program, who's now working on putting water level sensors on the bay. I don't know how I got here, but step up, do the thing, say yes. Do you want to do it? Yes. You have no idea where it's going to take you. It could take you wonderful places. But get involved in lots of things, develop a lot of expertise. And so this is going to sound strange, but there's a theme here. At some point, you may have the opportunity, I hope sooner than later, you have the opportunity to retire. And I'm going to wish you failure for all of us. That you develop these skills and expertise that you feel like you can continue to give back, to teach others, to help other people grow, to mentor other people, so you have the opportunity and you embrace the failure of retirement. You have done a lot. You have achieved a lot. You have so much more to come. And I hope, again, some of us are closer to retirement than others, but that when it's your time to retire, maybe you don't wear a suit and tie every day, but you still contribute, you still give back, you still train the next generation, because you do and you always will have a lot to give. So I thank the families for supporting the students, the spouses, the significant others. It's not easy. I know this from my wife. It's not easy being with a scientist if you're not a scientist. A lot of nodding heads. Yeah, sure, great, compiling code. It's a hard, the experiment didn't work, darn. People have a hard time conceiving this. And basically what other people do is to provide comfort and food and a shoulder to cry on, but then you get back up and you get back at it. And this hopefully won't change. So congratulations to our graduates. Thank you to the faculty and staff who have gotten all of our graduates here. Thank you to the families who have been that person to help, or people to help get our graduates here. I think the best is yet to come. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing you get your diplomas. Thank you.
Now comes the best part. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to read the name of the student who will be receiving the degree. They should come up this way. I'll read the name of their advisor and or the person who's going to hood them. They should come up this way. We'll go through the hooding. We'll go through some nice remarks by the advisor, and then we'll have some pictures right here. Okay? So let's get this going. The first student who's being honored today is Sohun An, or Sophie. She's receiving her PhD. Her advisor was Dr. Patricia Glibert at the Horn Point Laboratory, and her dissertation title is Interactions Between Nitrogen and Temperature on the Metabolism of the Red-Tide Mixotrophic Dinoflagellate Karenia species in Support of Predictive Models, Implications for Bloom Dynamics on the West Florida Shelf. Pat Glibert wasn't able to be here today, so Horn Point Director Dr. Mike Saraki will hood. Sophie.
So Dr. Glibert sent along a nice message for you to hear, Sophia, and for all of you to hear. Hi, Sophia, and I know that this is from the heart. I'm really so sorry I cannot be here with you and your parents on this monumental day. I'm immensely proud of you and all you have accomplished. You endured a year of COVID and isolation in the lab. You learned how to do your experiments entirely on your own, as no one else was allowed to be in the lab with you. You have grown as a person and as a confident scientist, 4 papers published and at least 1 to go. A sterling record of accomplishment. You are also a great Horn Point citizen, participating in and leading tours of the lab, as well as a key search committee as a student member. You are a great companion in our Florida Red Tide field adventures. I cannot wait to see all you accomplished in your richly deserved new position as the National Ocean Sciences Accelerator Mass Spectrometry Facility postdoctoral scholar at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. I wish you well. Stay in touch. I look forward to seeing you soon. Pat.
The next student who will be honored today is Taylor Armstrong. She is, yay. Her advisor is Dr. Alan Place from IMET, and the title of her dissertation is Impact of Plant-Derived Allelochemicals on Harmful Algal Blooms.
So Taylor is my 26th graduate student. With all of my prior graduate students, there was always that period of time you had to pull them out of the rabbit hole and so forth. With Taylor, I had to grab on the coattails and be taken for a trip like no other. She had her own funding. And during this whole process, during her defense, literally weeks later, she gave birth to her beautiful new daughter in the process. I wasn't stupid enough to let her get her way, so I actually hired her now as the director of Rick's HAB-CTI NOAA project, $7.5 million. And I'm hoping that we will see great things coming from that directorship. Thank you.
The next candidate is Paulina Huanca Valenzuela. She was advised by Dr. Clara Fuchsman. At Horn Point, and the title of her dissertation is Nitrogen, Microbes, Particles, and Oxygen Deficient Zones.
Paulina came to Horn Point in the fall of 2019 and had to do a big pivot to a totally bioinformatics project during the pandemic. And so she had to learn a lot, and specifically thinking about oxygen deficient zones and both how the organisms there get their nitrogen and also about particles in that region. Paulina is now a Knaus Fellow at NOAA.
I love this. This is my favorite part of my job. It has been every year that I've done it. Thank you all for allowing me to do it. The next candidate is Carol Kim, also from the Horn Point Laboratory. Her advisor is Dr. Saira Malkan, and her dissertation title is Microbial Communities in Coastal Ecosystems.
Carol, it's so great to see you. Carol's title is very general because you had two very different pieces to your project. One of them was looking at microbial communities in salt marshes, and you used fieldwork, you used machine learning algorithms, you really progressed the field of our understanding of how microbial communities respond to carbon transformations in the environment in a really fundamental way that we will continue with in the future. The other piece of it was looking at how electroactive microbes interact with each other. These are microbes that conduct electricity and work together. And this took a tremendous amount of perseverance. I am so proud of you for all of the work you did. And the reason it took so much perseverance is because you overturned our understanding of how they were actually functioning. Our framework and our conceptual model began completely wrong, and you've really shown us through all of your tenacity and all of your hard work, a lot of experimental work and a lot of bioinformatics about how things are operating, again, in a fundamental way. You're now a Knaus Fellow, and I wish you all the greatest with this fellowship and with all of your coming opportunities. You turn around, and I do it. I'm so much taller than you. You were my first student, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. The last of our PhD candidates is Kyoto Silophone. Here's Tom. And her advisor was Dr. Thomas Fisher from the Horn Point Laboratory. The title of her dissertation is Dual Water Quality Responses After More Than 30 Years of Agricultural Management Practices in the Rural Headwaters of the Choptank River Basin in the Chesapeake Bay Watershed.
Thank you, Larry. I've had the pleasure of working with Kyoto for the last decade. She has perhaps one of the longest graduate tenures here, but she was teaching full-time at Salisbury State University, was dealing with a bunch of health issues, and then finally I was away for part of the time, and so anyway, I am so glad that she is here today. I think the driving question that she was interested in was how well are the measures to improve water quality in Chesapeake Bay working? Do we know that they are working? What was the evidence that, in fact, improvements were or were not being made? And that was really what set each of her chapters is a part of that story. And part of the problem was that much of the assumptions about how the bay was changing or not changing were modeled and not directly measured. And so she set about to look at how best management practices work and how efficient they are and whether or not they are, in fact, functioning as the models are predicting. So her thesis is a strong assessment of how well that was happening in the Choptank Basin, and I think her thesis will have a large impact on how the Bay program views its models and the programs that they're trying to encourage. So I'm very pleased to be here, and congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, now we move on to our master's degrees. The first candidate is William Atkinson. Who was advised by Dr. Victoria Coles at Horn Point Laboratory, and the title of his master's thesis is Mesoscale Eddies Influence Zooplankton Distribution and Grazing in the Gulf of Mexico.
So Billy, like almost all of you, started his master's career in isolation under COVID, and yet he developed some amazing skills over the past several years. His written and oral communication skills are just unbelievable. He was a mentor and he was a leader in the Mies Graduate Student Council, and he picked up a heck of a lot of Python. And so he took those skills and he combined them with his interests, and we co-designed a project for him that looked at how physics, and eddies in specific, actually affected the ecosystem dynamics in the Gulf of Mexico. And his hypothesis turned out to be true. It turned out that stronger eddies actually led to enhanced grazing and trophic transfer in these eddies. And it turned out that he figured out that bottom-up control, which is how we thought about the problem, wasn't going to be enough to actually understand the system. We actually had to understand top-down processes as well. So I am incredibly proud of this work, which I think is going to make a huge splash when it goes out for publication extremely soon.
Our next master's candidate is Grace Avalos. Her advisor at the Appalachian Laboratory was Dr. Rodney Richardson, who is not here today. So she will be hooded by Dr. Setso Bakvarov from IMET.
So I'm Setso, I'm standing in for Rodney, and I work with Grace on our committee, and we spent a lot of time on Zoom together as a common theme. Another part of Grace's work that's kind of traditional for UMSI students is that she did something that no one else had ever done before, which was she applied essentially forensic techniques to look at flowers, to see which insects were visiting those flowers, to develop better understanding about pollination and rare and endangered species, specifically bee species. So she coupled this high-tech sort of criminology of insects and flowers in a terrestrial system with traditional entomology techniques, led field work, worked through COVID, developed the DNA techniques. And it's just as one example of the work that she did, she participated in my class, developed better understanding, and eventually came back and returned and taught the same material to the students several years later. And since then, Grace has gone on to work at Smithsonian Environmental Research Center, and now she's going to go out west. Congratulations, Grace.
Next, we have Imani Black. Imani was a master's student with Dr. Matt Gray at Horn Point Lab and Dr. Jen Schaefer from the University of Maryland at College Park. The title of her thesis was Unveiling the Legacy of African American Watermen in Chesapeake Bay Commercial Fisheries, Preserving Cultural Heritage, Traditional Knowledge, and Future Participation through a Social Ecological Systems Perspective.
Okay, so when Imani joined my lab, we weren't really sure what she was going to study, but she wanted it to reflect her passion and understanding for and honoring the presence of African Americans working on the Bay. So collaborating closely with her co-advisor, Dr. Jen Schaefer, from the UMD Anthropology Department, Imani conducted research exploring the reasons why African Americans remained in or left the maritime industry. Her research improves the historical record of the Bay, honors the past African American contributions, and provides guidance to improve their inclusion into the future. So Imani is an enthusiastic and passionate researcher, and I'm confident that her work will continue to improve maritime industry nationwide for years to come. Congratulations, Imani.
Wait, it's backwards.
Is it backwards? Yeah.
You're welcome.
No, backwards still.
It's always the front.
It's on.
You've done this before. Is it good?
It's good.
I think it's inside out. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
There we go. It's inside out. Okay, we got this. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you.
Okay, my phone.
Yes.
Thank you.
I almost got away with it. Next, we have someone you've already met, Chelsea Fowler. Her advisor, was Dr. Louis Plow from the Horn Point Laboratory. And the title of her thesis was Investigating the Utility of Environmental DNA Analysis for the Monitoring and Management of Mid-Atlantic Alicine Fishes.
Thanks, Larry. So I did not prepare a speech, which is usually a better route for me, but we'll get through this. So as you heard earlier, Chelsea has been a fantastic ambassador to Horn Point Lab and just an impressive person all around, from her volunteer work, her communication work. It's impressive that she's done all that, yet has put together an incredible master's thesis that was probably half a chapter away from a PhD, really. I want to highlight quickly what she's done. So eDNA is a really, really promising, maybe even more than promising tool that has a lot of applications for biodiversity monitoring and for fisheries monitoring as well. And so what her work has done for river herring, which is an important species here on the East Coast, is shown that with careful daily sampling, she's able to reproduce a run count within a few percent that takes much more time, effort, and work. And so we're talking about a management relevant count of fish through eDNA. And this is not the only example, but it's one of the first out here, and it's really, really impressive. And Chelsea's work was really phenomenal during COVID, a lot of isolation, field work on her own. So really impressive work. And fortunately for me, Chelsea has stayed on for a PhD in oyster genomics, maybe more my home, looking at stress memory and understanding how oysters respond to multiple stress over time and how they reorganize their circuitry for that. So still using those molecular skills to do some really important work as well. So congratulations, Chelsea.
Next comes Meghna Matthews. Meghna was advised by Dr. Xin Zhang at the Appalachian Laboratory, and the title of her thesis is The Role of Urban Agriculture in Baltimore Food Systems.
Thank you, Larry. So here is a paradox. As you know, that United States are one of the most productive countries in agriculture around the world, and also one of the most affluent countries. But on the other hand, many of the communities are suffering from the basic food insecurity problems. And some of the communities are not even far from here. So it has been, in the past 2 years, it has been inspiring to observe Meghna taking on this very important challenge and paradox, and develop her thesis on the role of urban agriculture in the Baltimore food system. And it's a real testimony for her initiative, creativity, and commitment. From the initial design of the research project to building a network of community members and conducting interviews to the final write-up of her thesis, Meghna really demonstrated the exceptional independence and leadership throughout the process. And your compassion for the communities in Baltimore, and also the dedication for social justice issue, has been truly inspiring. And your journey that coupled with working with 2 social scientists and also myself, someone trained as a natural science but always aspired to do some real social science, it's really a great learning journey for all of us. And I'm sure that after dealing with such a composition of committee members, you are all set for dealing with any kind of difficulties in the future. So yeah, congratulations for the graduation, and Wish all your best, all the best.
And finally, we have Laura Wiltsey. Laura's advisor was, again, Dr. Matt Gray from the Horn Point Laboratory, and her thesis is entitled Determining Feeding Rates in Eastern Oysters, Chrostostria virginica, using Natural Ceston Flow-Through System.
Okay. So Laura's graduate research was to develop the fluorometric oyster feeding and respiration system. This system generates high-resolution long-term feeding and respiration data on oysters held under natural conditions. So the system is very novel, and I'm confident that it's bound to be adopted by others in the future, and the data that it generates will greatly improve our understanding on the environmental requirements of oysters as well as the biofiltration services that they provide. So since leaving my lab, Laura has moved on to become an environmental consultant, and she's about to become a NOAA contractor. But Laura is just a fantastic person. She was a great student, a phenomenal researcher, and our lab just wishes you the best of luck, although I know you won't need it. So congratulations, Laura.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it this time.
Yeah. Third time's a charm.
Thank you all.
I think you might have gotten the impression that this is a contact sport with us. Our advisors work closely with the students throughout their graduate careers, and you can sense the personal connections they've developed. And you've also, I think, gotten a taste of the diversity. We've had people from, we call it genes to ecosystems and everything in between. We're talking about mountains to sea and everything in between. So we've really experienced a great example of the kind of research that UMCES does. So, yeah, I've made it no secret I'm counting down the days when I can hand this over to Fernando, but today I'm actually loving my job. This is a personal highlight. Giving you guys this degree is really, really a great pleasure for me. And the other thing I learned both as an undergrad and grad student is how important family and friends are to make this happen for you. So could I ask the family and friends of our graduates to stand up, and could you guys give them a little appreciation? Now, you've heard a lot of mention of some of the trials and tribulations of this particular graduating class. These last few years when they were trying to study and take exams and conduct research and write papers and then ultimately their thesis and dissertations, there are some distractions in this world. We had the political and social unrest. We had this global pandemic. We had a global refugee crisis. We've got ongoing conflicts, extreme weather events that Rick Spinrad mentioned, all serving as potential distractions that could derail your graduate program. Yet you are able to maintain your focus, work through supply chain issues, travel restrictions to complete your degrees. And I think that measure of resilience is going to serve you well as you develop your careers. And you know, you're about to join this cadre of scientists that make significant contributions to fundamental discoveries about the environment, whether that's sustainability, preservation, restoration, or accelerating knowledge discovery of the world. We were founded about 100 years ago, 99 years ago. UMSES was founded on the principle of not just doing great science, but making that science count and providing societal benefits. So as this next generation of scientists that are going to inform policy and management, you bear a particular responsibility. You're a product of the smartest and best educated generation to grace this planet. But the problems we face now are way more complex and much more difficult than ever before. It's a challenge that you've chosen to dedicate your professional careers. And this reason I have hope is because you're the environmental leaders that our world so desperately needs. Michelle Masucci and Jay Perman collaborated on a fantastic Maryland Matters article about the importance of environmental leadership in this coming generation. And I think they captured what we need from you. Today is a commencement. It's a commencement of closing one chapter and beginning the next. As you move into your professional career, it's a commencement of lifelong learning and networking. As your personal influence and network grows, and Dr. Spinrad talked about that, it's also a commencement of a lifelong connection to these friends and colleagues that you've made here in your graduate career. You might be leaving UMSES, but you're taking some of us with you. So thank you for choosing this career path and contributing to addressing the existential global challenges now facing our environment. So I'm going to confer the degrees. The Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy degrees are awarded jointly by the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science and the University of Maryland College Park. So if the doctoral students could please stand. By the power invested in me by the Board of Regents of the University System of Maryland, and on the recommendation of the faculty that you have met the high standards and the necessary requirements, I confer upon you the degree, Doctor of Philosophy. Congratulations. And now if we could have our master's students please stand. By the power invested in me by the Board of Regents of the University System of Maryland, and on the recommendation of the faculty that you have met the high standards and all the requirements, I confer upon you the degree of Master of Science. This is really a wonderful moment. So thank you all for attending today. Congratulations to all our graduates. Thank you, Dr. Spinrad, for your inspiring words.